Given this age of heightened security, it's no surprise that 2 Saturdays ago, when a mysterious white object attached to a parachute fell from the sky about a mile from the Northeast Philadelphia airport, the bomb squad was called in. But far from being a threat, the unidentified object was a weather instrument called a radio sonde. This small battery-powered instrument package weighs about a pound and is suspended below a large latex balloon inflated with hydrogen or helium to about 5 feet wide at launch. As the radio sonde rises at about 1,000 feet per minute, these instruments measure pressure, temperature, and relative humidity, while onboard GPS tracks the radio sonde's position so wind speed and direction can be determined too. The balloon expands as it rises, eventually popping at a very high altitude, usually 100,000 feet or so, and a small orange parachute deploys so the radio sonde floats slowly back to the surface. The balloon that fell in Northeast Philly on November 21st was launched about 150 miles away in Sterling, Virginia, near Washington, D.C., then carried by the wind about 90 miles before bursting in Northeast Maryland. Then it drifted another 60 miles or so to its eventual touchdown site. Here's a graphical representation of the data retrieved by the radio sonde. Now, the temperature was 48 at launch with light southeast winds, which quickly shifted to southwest at almost 50 knots just a few miles up. Then around jet stream level, winds were blowing right towards Philadelphia at 93 knots. The pressure dropped to 300 millibars, which is about 30% of the surface value, and the temperature was a frigid minus 44. Above that, temperatures bottomed out in the minus 70s and winds slowed to a light breeze, then picked up again when the balloon got into the stratosphere, where it actually warmed up a little. This radio sonde got to about 21 miles in altitude, around 110,000 feet. The National Weather Service, then called the U.S. Weather Bureau, first established a network of radio sonde stations in 1937. Today it numbers about 100 if you include territories in the Pacific and other stations in the Caribbean. Pittsburgh is the only launch site in Pennsylvania. Globally, the total was about 800, with most in the Northern Hemisphere. Radio sondes are launched twice a day, as close to 0 and 12 Universal Time as possible. That's 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Most radio sondes land uneventfully in wilderness or water, but every so often one falls in a populated area. Each is marked harmless weather instrument and has its own postage-paid, return-addressed mailing envelope so finders can send it back. But less than 20% of the approximately 70,000 launched each year by the Weather Service are actually returned. This recent case in Northeast Philly isn't the first freak instance involving a radio sonde in the last few years. In April 2012, a National Weather Service balloon launched in Tallahassee, Florida, actually landed on a person when it fell to the earth in a nearby county. The only time I've ever heard of that happening. Fred is back next with the extended forecast.